Just seeing a message. Catherine says it's ginger night.
Yeah.
Hello.
We're taking over. Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 4. Just want to say a quick bit at the beginning. You might have seen that Mark said this on Facebook, but I know that some of you, quite a few of you, are feeling a little bit overwhelmed at the moment, and quite a few of you are behind on the coursework. So just to say that me and Mark have said that we're going to cut you a bit of slack this week. So there is a lot less homework this week, but just do what you feel is going to be most useful, and we won't be on your case if you don't do everything. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to get straight into it because it's 7. So I'll start by introducing Francis Briers. I already work with Francis on the Embodied Facilitator course because he's the co-lead trainer alongside Mark. So Mark and Frankie go back a long way as well. So Francis is a very experienced embodied trainer. He's also the author of several books. He's a martial artist. He's a professionally trained actor. He's a samurai game facilitator. Are you still the only one in the UK?
Yeah.
So if you want to know what the samurai game is, I'll let Francis explain that. And he's also an interfaith minister and spiritual counsellor. So lots of strings to his bow. So today's webinar is on depth and intuition, and I'm going to hand over to Francis now.
Yeah. Hi. So lots of hellos and messages going on down the side of my screen. So I'll mostly respond here, but thank you for all the lovely hellos, and I can see some people I recognise. So amongst all of those things that Catherine very graciously mentioned, she didn't say actually what my job is. So my day job is I'm a leadership development consultant mostly. I'm a senior consultant with a kind of leadership management consultancy based over near Guildford called DPA, and I work with all sorts of big companies and some medium-sized companies. Don't work with too many small companies these days. Most of my time is spent helping leaders to be more connected with what's going to help them to be effective. Now, some of that is very practical stuff like understanding strategy or communicating effectively. And some of that is more numinous, what feels closer to what we're, I think, talking about here, which is to do with a sense of authenticity, a sense of meaning and purpose, a sense of centeredness, and a positive, effective state. So that's what I spend my days doing. Most days of the week, most weeks of the year, and I'm also a dad and a husband, and have been in kind of body, mind, spirit kind of work as a learner for 20 years, something like that, and as a facilitator or teacher or kind of coach and counsellor for about 15. So hello everyone. I'm aware I've got slightly dramatic lighting. I got set up for the call in our sitting room, and discovered that the lighting was a little dim for this setup. So I've got my extra lamp here. Makes me look very dramatic. I hope this works okay for you. You can see me well enough. So I'm aware that the way this is positioned in the course is you're on week 4 of the program, and you're at a point where you've done a lot of reflection on what your strengths are and what your values are, what's important to you and what you have to offer the world, I guess is how I'd frame that or see that. And this call specifically is intended to be about facing death to some degree, and that's part of what's coming in the coming week is meditation around that, and how that informs your choices in life and in the world. So I'm curious how many of you have come close to death in some way, whether in your own life on this planet or whether in terms of people near to you who have died or come close to death, and you've been around to experience that. For how many of you, it'd be interesting to see just in the comments. Yeah, and if you feel to share something specific, as Bridget has, that's welcome. And if it's you just want to say yes, that's fine too. Yeah. 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 So thanks for the responses there, those of you that messaged. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see this message from Shiri. That's pretty fierce, huh? So for me, I don't know, I've had too much in the way of serious near-death experiences myself. There's been moments in various ways. I think what's been particularly sharp in my life is losing others. So my mum died about 10 years ago, and then a very dear friend, kind of soul sister, died a few years ago. So my experience of coming close to death is that something is brought present in that moment in me, which is both painful and potentially beautiful. And that moment of presence is a kind of gateway with all of the other things that it is in terms of the pain and difficulty, and sometimes a sense of release or celebration in a different kind of way. With all of the other things, it is that there's a kind of gateway in that moment which gives me access, has given me access to profound clarity about my life. And there's a way that when we allow death to be close, that enables us to live more fully. So in the pagan tradition, particularly, there's various celebrations that really acknowledge death. Samhain or Halloween is one of those. So where death is acknowledged as being close and deliberately brought closer as a means of bringing close those who have passed over to the other side, who we've lost. And as a way of, as a kind of gateway that allows us to let the things we don't want in our life anymore die. So that's one way that death can be a gateway, is that the stuff that you don't want in your life anymore, you can say, I don't want that anymore, actually, I don't need that anymore. And when death is close, we can let it go more readily. We can let those things that we don't need anymore die. And another is just this moment of clarity, this moment of profound presence that I mentioned, where how I want to spend my life becomes much clearer. And some of that is about something I do, and some of that is just about a kind of way of being. And I'm interested in a way of being in some ways, because I think people get a little hung up on what we do. I'm fascinated by that too. I'm often, one of my early questions when I meet someone is to ask them what they do, what their work is, because I'm fascinated by how people spend their time in their jobs and the way that workplaces can be communities, even if they don't realize it. But there is a way that, the nearness of death can be a presencing for us of what might be most meaningful for me in terms of how I spend my life, how I spend my time. So I have a poem. Some of you will know this of me, and others this will be a new thing, but I like to share poems. That's part of how I explore things, is poetically, creatively. So I have a poem to share. Some of you may have seen it. It's called Death and Life. So I invite you to, if you can, if you're taking notes, or if you're thinking, kind of processing, or if your attention is slightly disparate, I invite you to really bring yourself present. So maybe if we do a brief centering, that'd be a great place to start. So let's take a moment to center together. So feel your feet on the ground, bum in your seat. I invite you to sit with dignity, whatever that means to you. So sit with dignity, find out, so kind of explore how that feels to you. What brings you that sense of dignity as you sit? And bring your attention to your breath. Paying attention to the sensation of your breath moving into your body and out again. And as you breathe in, saying hello to whatever's arising in that moment. And as you breathe out, saying goodbye to whatever arose. So I might say hello to my busy head, and then say goodbye to my busy head. And it doesn't mean it necessarily goes away, but I can take that moment to just say hello to it, and then say goodbye to it, and that's okay, it's coming and going. And say hello to whatever's there, and saying goodbye to whatever's there. And goodbye. And the last one, so saying hello to whatever's going on in you, in your body, in your environment, in your world right now, saying hello to whatever's there. And saying goodbye to whatever's there as well. And in that quiet, hopefully reasonably centered state, I'm going to read a poem, and I want you to reflect on the poem as I'm reading it. And then I'd love to hear afterwards if you have comments or if you've got any questions that arise out of that moment afterwards. So see if you can just sit with the poem as I read it, and then see what arises out of your state, your mindset, whatever's bubbled to the surface as you listen to the poem. You are going to die. You are going to die. There is no avoiding it. Pretending it won't happen won't prevent it. And more than that, everyone and everything you love will die too. There is no solace in this world, no legacy great enough to ensure your immortality. You are closer to death now than when I started reading. Take another step, my friend. There is no avoiding it. There could be misery in these thoughts, terror, disillusionment, pain, but there is a gift as well. It is only by embracing the reality of death that we truly learn how to live. There is a fierce urgency that is yours to claim, a freeing knowledge of your own doom that waits, like death, just around the corner. Only imagine the knowledge of imminent doom to bring a rush of hedonism, a selfish fuck you to the world as you pursue your own pleasure. But that is not what I see. That is not what I feel in myself as I contemplate my own demise. I want to share. I want to give, to love. I seek belonging, not belongingness. I welcome simplicity and peace, not a chaotic feeding of my inner glutton. I seek substance, not substances, because in confronting my death, I have to confront my life. In facing the fact that I could disappear at any moment, I have to ask the question, what if I could appear at any moment? What if? What if? And what if I stepped out from behind the cloud of my own inhibitions and really lived? What if I grasped the opportunity in my life, not for fame or greatness or money or any of the other egoic delights I may pick up incidentally along the path? What if I grasped the opportunity in my life for ordinary wonder? What if seeing death could help me to see life? What if the marvel of life lies not in the marvels but in the minutiae? The light on my cup, moment of satisfaction after eating a meal or speaking to a friend. What if I could appear to myself at any moment? What if I could see myself with fresh eyes now, and now, and now, and know this is who I am, and tomorrow I will be someone else, and that is wonderful and terrible, wonderful and terrible, to have to face my own death every day, the possibility of my physical death and the reality of dying to myself every moment. Because I am not the same person now as when I started writing this. You are not the same person who started reading this. You are not only dying but dead. You are dead. You're dead already. You don't owe anyone anything. And you owe a great legacy in every moment because you are your own ancestor. Are you going to let the million yous who died so that you could live die for nothing? Knowing that you will die anyway, can you sacrifice yourself in this moment so that the you who is being born might receive a legacy of choice? Can you embrace death, dear one, so that you might learn how to live? Can you embrace death, dear one, so that you might learn how to live? So I'm curious what comes up for any of you after that poem. What comes to the surface? Yeah. Right. Interesting. Can you say more about that, Lucy? Yeah, we can definitely send out a printed version. Yeah. Peace. Yeah. 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 So being your own ancestor. Okay. So, yeah, reminds you of something you wrote, Jamie. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to die. I don't want to die either right now. Yeah. So, yeah, commitment. So for me, I guess I'm just picking up. Yeah. So Jane's mentioned what I got from grief was an opening to love, and Andy's mentioned Joseph Campbell. Yeah, you have to die to yourself to be reborn. So I find both, the response of grief, well, all the responses, grief, peace, and anxiety, all I think are completely natural human responses. And healthy ones in some way. So in my experience, death is happening all the time. So in one of the traditions of shamanism that I studied over the years, they talk about one direction, in the direction of earth, the earth element, and I think you guys are going to work with the elements if you haven't done already. The earth element is defined as, one of the definitions of it is death brings change. They have worked. You have worked with the elements. That's great. So I would say that no change can happen without death, and that death is actually happening all the time. So if I'm not at peace, if I don't find a way to be at peace with death in some way, and my experience is that just by bringing it close consciously is what enables that. And there's lots of ways of doing that. I think you're going to be working with a death meditation, and that's one great way of doing that. The samurai there's samurai writings about contemplating your own death every day and the many ways that you can die. And one of the things that is considered to have been the kind of source of power for the samurai in many ways was the fact that they were ready to go into battle as if already dead. The attitude was, I'm dead already. So whatever I do from here on out is not about keeping myself alive. It's about doing what I believe to be right and good, because that's the best I can do in this moment. Keeping myself alive is irrelevant. Now, you can imagine that makes for a fearsome opponent. It also in my experience, makes for a kind of fierce and loving engagement with life. That I'm not sure. Yeah, death as your ally, absolutely. And I'm not sure how possible that kind of real freedom is without a degree of comfort, but certainly being at peace with death. Even if it's death as a kind of competitive ally. So I don't know if you guys watch Game of Thrones, but in the first series of Game of Thrones, there's a great fencing master, a wonderful character, who was teaching this young girl how to fence, how to wield the sword. And he said, when death comes for you, you say, not today. That was his whole thing. Was he was drilling into her. Whenever death comes for you, you say, not today. And I love it. He's got this wonderful kind of slightly Hispanic kind of attitude to him. He's wonderful. Yeah. And so for me, even though he's saying, death, you can't take me today, there's a kind of familiarity. The fact that he can turn around to death and, like a friend, say, not today. means that he's actually made peace with death. So that peace with death doesn't have to be bringing it close, welcoming it. It can be saying, you're not going to get me. You're not going to get me. But it's warm and friendly. It's familiar rather than antagonistic or desperate or anxious. And I think that's true. Typically, I see in myself and in others that a relationship with death is an echo of a relationship with change. And if you guys, and I'm imagining that there's some kind of change that you're wanting to make, that's why you're on this program. It could be a subtle adjustment of direction, or it could be a profound change in direction. But being at peace with death means that the bits of you that need to die to enable that to happen, to enable that change to take place, that you're more likely to be able to live with those changes rather than struggle with them. So Alice has mentioned her experience of her father dying. Thank you for sharing that, Alice. It sounds like a tender, vulnerable moment. And so one of the things that happens around any change, death being the kind of most extreme end of that, is grief, which can be another thing that people avoid. Grief. And my experience with grief is that it's pretty unavoidable. Even if I squash it, it's going to get me eventually. Often people are in shock at first for 3 to 6 months after someone dies. That's fairly typical. And then grief catches up with you, and it can be like a wave. Alice has described it as like a tsunami. And certainly I experience grief happening in waves. And I wonder if you guys, in the changes you've been trying to make in your lives, have experienced any grief. If you've been making shifts or trying to move yourselves towards something, if you're trying to move towards something different or new in terms of your work in your life, I wonder if any of you guys experienced grief yet. Anyone? Yeah. What have you been grieving as you started to make some shifts through this program? I know for myself, I've had periods of becoming aware that there's a version of me that's dying that I'm having to let go of, and that's come in different forms. I'm curious how you've experienced that so far. Anyone? Yeah, so part of relationship with family I've had to let go of. I hope that I will grow old with my current partner. Ouch. Often fight for things to change and grieve that it doesn't happen the way I want. Yeah. Missed my last question, Lee. So my last question was about have you experienced grief? If you started to change things through this program, have you experienced grief? And what kind of grief, what form has that taken? I noticed the first two are both to do with close relationships in some way. God lost a home, yeah. So I remember one of my teachers, a guy called Simon Buxton, who's a wonderful teacher of shamanism. He he once, I was on an extended program of study with him, and I went back and I'd had a real bad argument with my mum and my brother, and I remember him saying that sometimes your loved ones are those who will be the greatest barriers to your kind of spiritual awakening. Because there's a reality that those people we're in relationships with are invested. We've kind of made a contract with them. We made a deal where I agree I'll be this person and you agree you'll be that person. And as long as we keep doing that, we'll be okay. And that can be hard, even in the most conscious of relationships. It can be hard when someone really seems to be changing, and without explicitly doing it, but kind of almost unconsciously or very subtly renegotiating the terms of the contract. Yeah. And whether you experience that with your family or loved ones or friends or not, I know I have. I've shed friends periodically over the years. I've just, friends have fallen away and I've not been in touch with them. But there are also those friendships that have lasted, but it can be painful to let go, to let someone be a different person. And I think that's true of ourselves too. So I have a kind of deal with myself in a funny kind of way. I say, I'm going to be this kind of person and you can rely on me. It's like a conversation with myself. You can rely on me to be this kind of person. And then I let myself down in some way. And sometimes it's that I let myself down because I'm stretching towards something that is hard and I fail. And sometimes I let myself down because I'm stretching towards something that is hard and I succeed. And both of those can end up feeling like I've kind of betrayed myself in some way because I thought I knew who I was. I'm seeing some echoes of that in some of your comments. Does that feel familiar to any of you guys? I noticed Anushka said is not experience something as something dying within you, but like a snake shedding its skin, transitioning. Yeah. So it may just be that you're comfortable enough with that change, the change that's happening right now, that it doesn't feel as heavy as a death. Yeah, and Xanth, I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Xanth Green. Yeah, heavy conversation with boyfriend. Yeah, it can be really painful. Sorry, I may be dropping questions in without being clear about this, so I'm sorry if you're missing. So, Johanna, the question I asked was, I asked if you had the experience of maybe feeling like you'd let yourself down in some way, either because you've achieved something and you feel like you've kind of renegotiated the contract with yourself and you're not sure you're totally bought in, or you've not achieved something and that can feel like a letdown too, because you said you were going to be this person, now you haven't achieved it. I know I've had experiences of both. So many years ago, I decided to make the leap and start a business, doing the thing that I decided at that point I wanted to do. I was going to be, yeah, okay, so there's some other parallels here too. I decided I was going to be a shamanic healer. I'd been studying this for a long time. I'd been practicing, and I'd started this in a small way. And I say, you know what, follow your bliss. If you're convinced of it enough, it'll happen. You create your own reality. Just focus on it powerfully enough, and you can create it. You just have to be committed enough. I had all these stories going, And I was completely convinced, right, that's it, I'm going to quit my job. I had a day job running a book department in a shop, which I quite enjoyed. It was okay, but I was like, it's not the thing I really want to do. I want to heal people, and I want to write, and I want to run workshops. I can't do that while I'm doing this day job. It takes too much of my energy. So I got myself completely worked up that I was going to quit my job, and I went into the shop, and I didn't quit my job. Oh man, that hurt. So I go home that night, and while on one level it felt like absolutely the right thing to do, because I think unconsciously on some level I knew that I didn't understand actually how to operate a business. I didn't know how to do that work as a business. I got skillful at the skill of practicing shamanic healing. I didn't understand how to get clients enough to make a living, to keep myself healthy doing that, like all of the stuff to go with it. Even though I think on some level I knew I'd made the right choice, there was another bit of me, the fierce, ready to run off a cliff for the love of it, for the passion of it. Like that bit of me was like, you sell out. You've let me, there was this huge sense of betrayal, like I'd really let myself down, like everything that I believed to be true, I had betrayed, because I believed, I had told myself the story that I believed in this sense of creating my own reality. Yeah, and identity conflict is one way. And these identity conflicts can play out in us, and then they can play out in our relationships too. Because then sometimes it's even more likely to happen in relationships because, a kind of self-saboteur. I get really curious in those conversations, though, about self-saboteur. Which is the saboteur, right? The one that's convinced that I can work magic and make the thing happen, or the one that has actually maybe kept me safe because I would have been running my whole life and finances and everything else off a cliff in a way that would have been hugely unconstructive and damaging and disappointing and painful for me and others around me. So I get curious about which is the saboteur. And I don't think it's always so clean cut. So, I hear you guys have been working hard, is that right? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Big yes. Cool. So, just had a moment of feeling moved to share another poem. And I have a few here. I just need to find the right one. So this one, this is from I have a book of poems, but they're borrowed words in some ways, because the Tao Te Ching is an ancient brain hurts. Yeah. Okay. So the Tao Te Ching is an ancient Chinese text, wisdom text, and I decided to write my own modern version, which I have here. And so although I did write these, I don't feel entirely responsible for them. So it doesn't feel quite so self-aggrandizing to share them, because they are someone else's insights in some ways. So the Tao flows through the world, birthing, nourishing, loving. It gives but asks nothing, creates but claims no credit, contains but never traps. It's just there in the background, nothing special. It is the ground of all being, the great darkness we all return to, kind of a big deal. The wise fool echoes the town. He plods away in the background, accidentally achieving great things. The wise fool echoes the town. He plods away in the background, accidentally achieving great things. And I think if you're anything like me, as you can probably hear from my last story, there's a way that we can get really fiercely attached to making something happen, especially on a program like this, right? You've paid your money, you're committed, you've shown commitment, you've turned up, you got people like Mark Walsh, who's brilliant at, putting a rocket up people and getting them really fired up to do stuff. Brilliant, completely amazing. What an inspiring space to be. You've got this community of other people who are all trying to do great things. You want to make a difference in the world. There's amazing cool shit to make happen. And there's a way that we can end up trying so freaking hard. It's not fun anymore. It's not enjoyable. And it's probably not what we are aiming for anymore. And I know in my life there's been times where I kind of had to get out of my own way to enable something to happen. And in a way, that's what Halloween, Samhain, if I go back to the beginning, something I said near the beginning, is about. Is in the Celtic tradition, Samhain is when the sun god dies, is ritually sacrificed and dies. And you pass into a dark time. And in that dark time is when seeds can be sown. Quietly, gently, seeds can be sown without having to effort, without having to do stuff or push. But you can sow seeds knowing that in the darkness, they will be nourished and grow. Absolutely a liminal phase. Absolutely a liminal phase. So then at the new year, or just before that, is when the sun god is reborn as the child of light, right? Which is the solstice. When the days have got to their darkest and start tipping back and start to become lighter again. So there is this liminal phase, this between time, betwixt and between. In most of the magical traditions of the world, there's a place of betwixt and between where the most magical things are possible. And I wonder if you guys are tired, if you've been working very hard, whether it might be time to go quiet in yourselves to some degree, and meditating on death is a great way to do that, to be able to bring death closer. That's what happens at Samhain, is to bring death closer so that I can be with this kind of dark, rich, dark space out of which new things can be born, because that's the nature of death. Actually, as you may well be aware, things cannot live without other things dying. The rich loam, the earth out of which new things grow to flourish, that rich loam is made of dead stuff. So it feels like coming to the end of one phase. I mean, again, you're in a liminal phase, right? Because you're moving from phase 1 of the program towards phase 2 of the program. As you come towards the end of phase 1 of the program, it's a great opportunity for you to go a little quiet, to work a little less hard, and to kind of plant some seeds in the dark spaces of your psyche, and then trust that they will grow. That perhaps if you leave them in that quiet, rich soil of the dark areas of your soul, that they may sprout in unexpected ways. So I wonder if you guys have any thoughts of what seeds you might like to plant. So not something that you go, oh, I need to work on this. I hope they don't sprout out my ears. Maybe that would be perfect, Alice. So I get curious if you have any seeds that you'd like to plant to state here, to share with each other. Not things where you go, oh, I need to work on that. Here's something else I need to do. But things where maybe something that you go, I have no idea what to do with this. It's something that feels important to me right now, but I have no idea what to do with this. Maybe you can take that and just plant it. Kind of go, oh, here you go. If I sometimes imagine a kind of dark pool within my psyche, a deep dark pool that I can, when I have something I don't know what to do with it, I quite often kind of drop it into the pool and I see the ripples and then I just leave it. And at some point, what I know is that at some point it's going to rise, it's going to be kind of spat back out, it's going to bubble back to the surface. And I go, oh, no, there's that thing I'd kind of forgotten about. And usually when I re-find it, when it bubbles back to the surface, either it's because it's time to deal with it. And there's something I really have to get to grips with and I have to do something about it. But very often it's because it's kind of solved itself and it bubbles back to the surface and I go, oh yeah, that was really hard. And it doesn't feel so hard now. It kind of feels obvious and okay. Yeah, what I want in my relationship. Thank you for sharing something, Johanna. Has anyone else got something that they want to plant as a seed? So you can go, hey, Psyche, here's something. I don't know what to do with that. Can you deal with it? Can you nourish it in that deep, rich soil? Yeah. Thanks, Alice. Yeah, marrying touchy-feely, techie scenes. Yeah. 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 Business partnerships. Yeah. Yeah. So Laura, you can just put that as abstract as that. Say, I'm pretty sure there's some stuff that's just in my blind spot right now. I want to plant that seed and I'd like it to come back to me, sprout for me when I'm ready to deal with it. Oh yeah, seed of community. Yeah, I know that one. Opening my heart to abundance. Yeah, Johanna, that's a lovely example. Daring to listen to what I deeply long for. Beautiful. There's a poem in that, I think. Yeah. So let's return to that centering that we did before. So again, find yourself a way to kind of sit, feet in the ground, bum in the chair, sit with dignity. And coming back to that meditation or that kind of centering method about saying hello and goodbye. So as you breathe in, saying hello to this seed that you've discovered. And as you breathe out, saying goodbye. And taking a few breaths with that. So as you breathe in, saying hello to this seed you've discovered or uncovered. And as you breathe out, saying goodbye. Breathing in and saying hello, hello, I haven't met you before. And as you breathe out, saying goodbye. Oh, for now. As you breathe in, saying hello. And as you breathe out, saying goodbye. think sometimes in order to enable the most profound change to happen, we have to be willing to completely let it go. When I grasp it too tightly, I stop it from moving. I stop things from moving by hanging on to them. Relationships are the same, whether that's relationships with people or things. If I grasp it really hard, then I fix it the way it is right now. I fix it the way it is already, which stops it from being able to change. Whereas if I can let go of it, then I give it space to shift and change, transform. Maybe this is one of those moments. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Jane. Sorry you're losing the connection. So, connected with what I was just saying, it even has the word seek in it. I have another poem to share. And I'll make sure I make a note of which poems these are, and I'll share these poems with you on the Facebook group or something like that. So, to make something shrink, first let it grow. To make something weak, first let it be strong. If you wish something to leave, draw it into full presence. This is called the seed in the darkness. The small will prevail against the great. The humble will conquer the mighty. You have nothing to prove with this. You have nothing to prove with this. Allow the mystery to unfold. To make something shrink, first let it grow. To make something weak, first let it be strong. If you wish something to leave, draw it into full presence. This is called the seed in the darkness. The small will prevail against the great. The humble will conquer the mighty. You have nothing to prove with this. Allow the mystery to unfold. So if a moment ago we were just planting seeds, things that we want to allow to go into the darkness to grow, I wonder if there's anything you would like to draw into full presence to let go. So before you move into this second phase of Purpose Black Belt, is there anything you want to, in the presence of your community, draw into full presence in order to let it go? Yeah. So over planning brain, yeah. Shrinking myself, yeah. Closure equals closure, okay. I'm curious about that, Matt. I'd love to hear more if you want to write a little more, but it might be just plenty to say that for yourself, to state that here to help you let it go. Doubt. Overwhelming feeling of lostness. Gosh, that's hard. And I know that for what it's worth. I know that feeling. Fear. Yeah. Yeah, also fear. So let me share a story about lostness and fear from my past. So when the age of 12, I decided I wanted to be an actor. I've been in plays at school, and there was a youth music theatre company in my village that won awards and was amazing. I decided I wanted to be an actor, and I went gung-ho for that, full on. From that point on, from the age of 12, I was going to be an actor, and everything I did was kind of geared towards heading me towards being an actor. And every major stage of my life, at GCSEs, A levels, kind of all the way along, I had to let go of stuff, of everything else, in order to do more to help me move towards being an actor. And then I got halfway through my degree at drama school. I got into a good drama school. I was fortunate. 25 places at my drama school, the one I went to, and 4,000 people applied for those places. So I was, I don't know, a combination of lucky and talented to get in. And I got halfway through the degree and didn't want to be an actor anymore. And that was pretty hard. It was very hard at the time, because I had to keep doing this thing that I profoundly didn't want to do, but to finish my degree I needed to keep going, and I felt like I needed to finish. My third year I managed to find a way through. I kind of turned it into something else that I was interested in, a kind of exploration of something that I was curious about, and did that instead. I was still doing acting, but it was what I was really doing was this other thing. But then when I finished and left drama school, that's when it got really hard, because I've been so thoroughly 100% headed towards being an actor for 10 years that I didn't know who I was without acting. Like, I was, hi, I'm Frankie and I'm an actor. Like, that's who I was. I didn't know who I was anymore. And I sure as shit didn't know what I was going to do for work. And I ended up in a job that was kind of okay, but, was okay. It wasn't something I would have chosen. It was just good enough. And I was living in a city I didn't really like. I'd only gone there because that's where the drama school was. And some of you guys may have had this experience in other fields or the same field, but you basically go wherever you get into drama school, that's where you go and live, because drama school places are hard to come by. So I was in a city I didn't like either. And I kept floating between things. I think I really, because I had so many years where I was so clear about what I was going to do, and that was so much a part of my identity, I kept grasping after other things. I'm going to be a writer. Well, maybe I'll be a writer who does some healing work and maybe some teaching and stuff. No, actually, no, I'm going to be a healer, and I might do some writing on the side, and I might do something. But no. I'm going to be a workshop leader. I'm going to run workshops, and I might do some healing on the side, and maybe I'll do some writing on the side. And I cycled around these things, and I just couldn't settle on anything, because I was really grasping. I was just grasping after something to hang on to and to hang my identity on as much as anything else. And I was rudderless. That's what was really going on. I was rudderless. I didn't know where I was going, and I was profoundly uncomfortable with that reality. So I ended up moving cities, because I realized that I was living in a city I didn't particularly like, and I didn't have to live there. It hadn't even occurred to me that I could live somewhere else. So I moved cities, even though I knew, the old adage, problems travel. It wasn't going to solve all my problems, but it was one of the problems, was I was living in a city I didn't really like, and I didn't want to be there. So I moved, and I moved to Brighton, and I loved living there. I really liked it when I moved there in some ways, although I was very isolated. I had very few friends. I knew 2 people there, and both of them were away when I moved there for at least the first month. So I felt pretty isolated, and I'd managed to transfer within the company I was working in. But at the new job, there were problems in the business that I hadn't been made aware of when I took the job, and it was hard and not a happy place to be either. So I ended up leaving that, and because I decided to get a different job. And I had 2 criteria for that new job. And my criteria were that it had to be kind of, to some degree, creative and fairly practical, because I'd been managing people and I was kind of sick of the administration and people work and things like that. So it needed to be practical and reasonably creative. And I was lucky enough, I was young enough, I didn't have a lot of responsibilities that I could take a pay drop if I needed to or whatever. And I just get something else, as long as I could make my rent and things. So it had to be practical and hopefully a bit creative, but practical would do. And it had to not make me miserable. And looking back, I kind of feel sad that had to be a criteria. It's kind of sad and funny that I even had to make that a criteria, that I wouldn't just naturally not do a job that made me miserable, but I had to set it as a criteria. And I ended up spending a year as a chocolatier, trainee chocolatier, decorating cakes and making chocolate bars and flavouring chocolate and all sorts of things. And I had a great time. It's kind of dull and repetitive, actually. A lot of the work, it's kind of practical and repetitive, but nice people. It didn't make me miserable. It had a little bit of creativity in it. And it was just good enough. It was just good enough. While I didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do in my life, really. I had all these ideas, but I wasn't clear. I wasn't clear. Okay, I'm seeing some messages. Some of them are kind of relating to what I'm saying, but it sounds like some people are having problems with sound and stuff. So I'm sorry to hear that. So I'm going to carry on because I'm aware most people seem to be saying okay, and this is being recorded, so I want it to be of service, and you can listen to the recording afterwards. So hopefully that's okay. So why I share that story is this combination of fear and lostness and loss of direction. And really what I'd experienced was a kind of death. That the person who I'd known for 10 years and through all those formative years, from the age of 12 through to 22, like that's who I was, had died. And I hadn't acknowledged that, I hadn't realized that really. And I was struggling to come to terms with that version of me having died, and the new person hadn't really been born yet either. And that's terrifying. To speak from my own experience, it was very scary and painful and distressing. And it was okay. And I lived through it. And in some ways, and I had a number of years where I was pretty rudderless and I just did jobs that were not making me miserable. And I studied the things that called to me, and I learned some stuff and built relationships and tried some stuff out. I just had a go at running some workshops, and I had a go at writing things, and I had a go at whatever called to me. And over time, I evolved into a new person. But I didn't go, this is my purpose, and then move towards it. I had to move through steps by following, to begin with, just by following what doesn't make me miserable. Because I'd got into a place where actually there were quite a few things that were making me miserable. Does that resonate with anyone when I share that story? The fear, the lostness, the dying, the unrecognised dying of the self, letting things go. Yeah. Yeah, I hear that, Jamie Davies. Yeah. I had another instance more recently where I have a family and mortgage and all of those things, and there's a lot at stake, and I had to really let something go. So I can understand that. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I just encourage you, because I'd imagine that you're all pretty, if you're on this program, you're directed, you're wanting to find something new, you're wanting to make a shift, you've got this drive for purpose. And the course in places will be driving towards that too. Rightly, that can be really rich and helpful stuff. And especially in those moments where you're tired, I'd encourage you to relate maybe to a lower, lesser goal in some way. Might seem like a lesser goal, but actually, living a life with purpose, my experience of it is it's not a done thing. Like, I've had points where I've been closer to it and points where I've been further away, and I still feel like it's evolving. George Leonard talks beautifully about the path of mastery, and that it's a complete mistake to believe it to be a destination. It's called a path for a reason, but the path of mastery is that I am always going to be working and evolving to grow and learn and shift and change and die to myself and be born again. And I'm always going to be doing that. And the path of mastery is that. It's committing to that. It's committing to just keeping evolving and taking the next step and going, oh, what's this? And what's this now? 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 Being the best ancestor to yourself. So you can say, yes, I'm willing to die. I'm absolutely willing to die in this moment because something else is being born. And I'm willing to die in this moment because something else is being born. And I'm willing to die in this moment because something else is being born. Like, that's the way. It's not a thing. It's not a place. It's not a job. It's not a job description. It's not a business. It's not a business partnership. It's not a relationship. It's not anything. It's just keeping being present with that which is arising. That moment of going, oh, hello. Then goodbye. Yeah. So here's a poem that relates to some of that I've been describing, talking about, and some of you guys have been talking about. Hopefully it will resonate for you too and mean something to you. Loving the heavy will make your burdens light. Stillness begets movement. An immovable spirit is the source of a flexible mind. So the wise fool is busy going nowhere, constantly returning to center. If a great leader only chases his vision, he will be ungrounded. No matter how delicious a dream is, it won't fill your belly. Embrace practicalities, and every day can be a dream come true. I'll read that again. Loving the heavy will make your burdens light. Stillness begets movement. An immovable spirit is the source of a flexible mind. So the wise fool is busy going nowhere, constantly returning to center. If a great leader only chases his vision, he will be ungrounded. No matter how delicious a dream is, it won't fill your belly. Embrace practicalities, and every day can be a dream come true. So I want to leave you with a thought about love. So in the Hawaiian shamanic tradition, I'm glad that touched you, Lee. No, thank you for that message. In the Hawaiian shamanic tradition, all of the Hawaiian philosophy is hidden in the language, and there's different ways to translate the language and break words down in different ways. Yes, I will post. I'll share all the poems. So you can break the language down in different ways. So in like the name of the big island, Hawaii. The name Hawaii doesn't mean anything in the language, but if you break it down into the pieces, Ha means breath, and Vai means water, and I means spirit. So it actually means breath, water, spirit. And that's a beautiful name, right? So there's other things hidden in the language. So aloha is the way of saying hello and goodbye. And I always felt it was a beautiful thing that you say hello and goodbye with love. You know, that was the meaning I made out of it, and that's how people often think about it, that when I say hello and when I say goodbye, I'm doing that with love, because aloha also means love. And then I used to practice Hawaiian massage, and you move very slowly in these long flowing strokes when you're practicing Hawaiian massage, or the style I learned anyway. And one time I was massaging someone, and as I moved very slowly over their body, I caught myself saying hello and goodbye to every millimeter of their body. So as I moved through the movement of the massage, I was kind of going, oh, hello, and with real love, you know, oh, hello, oh, goodbye, hello, goodbye. And this is a really sweet moment of being able to say hello and goodbye, and it was fine to be joyful about saying hello, or sad to say goodbye. It wasn't that I had to be completely detached. There was a kind of healthy non-attachment where I could love every moment and every millimeter of their body. I could love each movement while I said hello and goodbye at the same time. And what I realized is that aloha as a word, not only is it this beautiful way of saying hello and goodbye with love, it's also like dot-to-dot instructions how to love when you don't know how to love. Whether it's a person or whether it's a thing that's happening in your life, it's a dot-to-dot instruction of how to love even when you don't know how to love. Because the way to love is to just keep saying hello and goodbye. So in every moment, if I can say hello to you, not just the you that I think I see, but the you that is actually emerging in that moment, then that is potentially the most loving act I can engage in. Because I might enable you in that act to be freer than you'll even let yourself be free, right? Because we keep ourselves trapped by identifying in a particular way. I keep myself trapped by saying, this is who I am, and kind of telling the story. And it becomes an old story eventually, but I keep telling it. But potentially, if someone else looks at me and sees the me that is emerging in this moment, the me that is uniquely present in this moment, that might be a me that I'm not allowing myself to engage with. And their love, their presence, their capacity to say, oh, hello, say goodbye to all that other shit that's been going on, this old story that I've got, their loving presence that says hello to what's emerging in this moment could be the most magical, beautiful, freeing thing that could ever be possible. So this centering practice I've shared with you of taking a breath, and as you breathe in, saying hello, and as you breathe out, saying goodbye. So whatever is arising in this moment is a practice of death, embracing death, letting whatever is here be here, and letting it leave again, letting it die in each moment. It's also a practice of love. And it's been a practice for me even in times of when stuff is not so good, to be able to be with, like that thing I mentioned and one of you commented on, just not making me miserable, right? So can I just love what is happening in this moment? Can I be with it? Can I say hello to it and say goodbye to it? Without having to move towards something else, without having to push myself towards a particular destination or goal. Because my experiences for myself is that that's a profoundly loving act potentially for me. It's a profoundly loving act of the moment and what's really happening rather than this mythical destination that I think I'm moving myself towards. And it can be a deep relief when you've been pushing very hard. So, yeah, if you've been working hard, maybe plant some seeds in the darkness and let them grow on by themselves. You don't have to make it happen. See if you can let go of some of the, see if you can let die some of the things that you don't need to keep with you, that you're kind of sick and tired of. Let the nearness of death carry them away from you into death because you don't need them anymore. And see if you can take that profound and loving step to say hello and goodbye in each moment, whatever's going on, and not push so hard. Let yourself be rudderless for a little while, maybe, because something else might emerge out of that space. So I'm aware it's time to finish. Thank you for your presence and attention. It's been a real delight to be on here with you and see the little messages and engage with you in that way. And I hope this has served you in your paths.
Thank you, Francis. I see everybody got a lot from that. I think it was really right for this point in the course, I think, from the feedback we're getting from everybody.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah. So I will make sure we share the poems with you by email or on Facebook or wherever is the right place to do that. You'll get all those poems. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I really wish you well. I'm inspired by there being such a great community of you driving to do beautiful things in the world, whatever that looks like. Yeah. I look forward to seeing the fruit of that.
Thank you.
And thanks for your graceful hosting, Catherine. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I'll see you at module 4.
Yeah. All right.
See you later.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm just going to hang around for a minute or two in case anyone's got any course manager questions. You're welcome to ask them here. But yeah, Francis, you're free to go.
Okay. I can hang around too if you like. I don't mind. But I realise you may have course stuff to
just in case
work out.
Any questions for me, but I have emails so they're already.
All right. Well, go well with love. Bye, guys.
See you later.
When I can work out how to sign off.
I can sign you off if you want. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Log me off. It may take me a while to work it out.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. See if anyone else has got any course manager questions. Okay, sounds like you're okay. I'll send out an email tomorrow anyway, just to reiterate what Marcus said on Facebook, that we're going to cut you a bit of slack this week because we know quite a few of you are quite overwhelmed, have quite a lot on at the moment. Okay, it looks like people are logging off, so I'll assume nobody has any questions. So thanks, everyone. And I hope you have a good rest of Sunday evening and lots of self-care this week and just doing the work that feels most useful. Okay. Good night. Bye.